Hello, everyone, and welcome. Um, for those that don't know me, my name's David Shahinian. I'm one of the directors of 4Point, and I look after solution delivery. Appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day and allowing us to eat into your lunchtime by attending today's session. We think it's going to be a really valuable session because it brings new capabilities to your Sage Intacct solution. Um, so today's webinar is really about a Sage Intacct marketplace solution called Velixo. In a nutshell, Velixo is an Excel-based add-in that lets you extract data from Sage Intacct in real time, and it also lets you push data back into Sage Intacct through the API. We've been looking for a solution like this for a number of years now, and we think we found it. So to tell you more and show you more, we have Duffy Cohen from Velixo. He's the VP of Partner Sales and Customer Success, and I'd like to hand it over to Duffy. During the webinar, if you've got some questions, please put them into the Q&A section, and we'll have a look at those questions at the end of the demonstration. Over to you, Duffy.
Perfect. Thank you for that fantastic introduction, and nice to virtually meet all of you today. As you can imagine, I do have a Canadian accent, but I was back in your neck of the woods just under a month ago, and very excited to showcase our solution, Velixo, today. Before we get started, I do want to thank the 4Point team for allowing us to showcase Velixo to everyone here who is on the call today. We really feel that you will all see the value in our solution, but also feel free to ask any questions. As mentioned, for us, we want to make sure that all the questions are answered. So to get started, what is Velixo? Put simply, Velixo is an Excel-based reporting solution that will allow customers to extract all the data that they have within Sage Intacct and bring it to life within Excel. And just like David mentioned, it is bidirectional. So it's not only pulling your data from Sage directly into Excel, but you'll have that flexibility to update data from Excel and push that directly back into Sage itself. So we're going to talk a little bit about Velixo for the next couple of minutes. But for the majority of the time today, I'm going to walk you through the solution itself. So how we have that tight connectivity into Excel, how we bring all that data in. We're going to create a trial balance. I'm going to show you all some of those new functionalities, such as drill down, such as being able to write back your data, but really being able to report on anything that you want. So again, a little bit about Velixo is that we are just under 7 years old, and in a very short period of time, we have grown to thousands of customers in our ecosystem. It says 1,600 right there, but we have grown drastically in the last 6 months alone. So I'm happy to share that we're over 2,000 customers. One item I do want to mention is that, yes, our head office is in Canada itself, but we are a worldwide organization. Funny enough, the second largest market for us behind the US is Australia. We actually have over 500 customers within the Australian ecosystem already who are using Velixo for their day-to-day reporting needs. We always like to highlight and showcase some of the employees who work at Velixo, but I do want to emphasize from a servicing standpoint, we have support that will cover everyone here for a 24-hour time frame. So really, where did Velixo come to be? His image should be a little bit larger. You'll see Gabriel Michaud, who is our founder at Velixo. But before starting at Velixo, he actually worked for an ERP on the product development team. And he would go off with the previous CEO and meet with many customers. During his time there, while meeting with many of these customers, he noticed that customers were coming up with the same requirements every single time. They didn't want to have to click that export to Excel button, because once they brought that into their reports, it was manual, it was not even capable to being used anymore. They wanted something that provided them with that flexibility to build the reports the way they wanted to. So Gabriel had went off on his own, and in a couple of months, he actually built Velixo himself. And the first test case scenario that we had was Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC, which we're lucky enough to work with right now. And that was the real good starting point from Velixo. I think we all know that it really is not a secret anymore. Customers want to use Excel. It is something that we are known for, something that you have been used to as you've been in school. If you're working, you're always exporting your data into Excel, and then you're manipulating it the way you want to do. With Velixo, we allow you to use Excel for the same functionality. We just create that tight integration. We all are aware with those issues with manual spreadsheets. Absolutely, it is a repetitive task and time consuming. I'm sure some folks here who are building the exact same report over and over again don't want to be doing that. Not only that, when you're building these reports, it is very easy to make a mistake. But lastly, and this is my favorite piece because we'll talk about this in the next little bit, is that all the changes that you're making within your report itself, right now, if you're using Excel, cannot write that data back. It's a one and done type of process. One last item I do want to mention here is that 80% of companies who look at going away from Excel end up coming back to Excel. Because at the end of the day, we all know our board of directors, our shareholders, they're looking for a report to look and feel the way it needs to. Introducing Velixo for Sage Intacct. Number one, what you all will see in just a couple of minutes once we get started with the demo presentation itself is that the installation process is seamless. It's going to take seconds for Velixo to install within Excel. In addition to that, all of the data that you will see today is live and refreshable at the click of a button. So you create these reports once and then you are done. In addition to that, you'll have that flexibility to push data back from Excel directly into Sage Intacct. Absolutely, you'll be able to have those same pixel perfect formatting that you have within Excel. But one of the biggest pieces I always like to highlight is that Velixo will mirror the exact same permission rights that you set up for each individual user in Sage when those users are utilizing Velixo. So let me give you an example. If there's someone on your team, let's say, who doesn't have access to specific data within Sage itself, whether it's budgeting or specific screens, when they're trying to use Velixo, they will still be restricted in accessing or even viewing that data. So again, we mirror those permission rights that are set for each individual user in Sage when they're using Velixo. And then lastly, you'll see a sample of some of the organizations that we're working with right now. I am not able to include all the thousands of companies that we work with, but I just wanted to provide a highlight of some of the Australian organizations that are currently using Velixo for their reporting needs. So with that being said, let's get started with our presentation, and no better way to start within our favorite tool, Excel. Once we're in Excel, the first question that usually comes up is, how do I install Velixo? It is very simple. All you'll have to do is click on Add-ins, More Add-ins, and this is where you'll simply search for the Velixo solution. See right here, we'll go ahead and click on Add, but you'll notice on the right-hand side I've already installed Velixo, but it is as simple as that. We're an add-in within the Microsoft ecosystem, so it really makes it very simple to add your connection. Upon adding Velixo, and we're clicking on the icon right up top, you'll see we'll have that flexibility in adding our connection itself. One big component here I like to mention is that the exact same credentials that every individual is using to log into, let me just show you. Everyone's going to be using to log into their environment within Sage are the same credentials that they're going to use to log into Velixo itself. So Sage Intacct, you'll put your connection name. And the biggest piece I like to mention here is try to keep the connection name as short as possible because you're going to be referencing this connection name quite frequently. Your company ID, user ID, and passcode are the exact same credentials that you're using within Sage. So let me go ahead and let's just open up a new one here. Let's log into our Sage Intacct credentials. Perfect. Let's grab that company ID and we'll dive back into the solution. And one other item I do want to mention before I do click on connect is SSO. So if anyone here has Active Directory, single sign-on, you can still fully authenticate with Velixo. And then lastly, as most folks here are already aware, you can remember your credentials so you don't have to fill this in every single time. So let's go ahead and connect, and we'll notice right away we are connected into our ecosystem. Once you download Velixo for that first time, you'll see it up top on the ribbon, a new icon again that's been installed. When we go ahead and click on that, you'll see a drop-down of all the functionalities we'll have access to. So number one, refreshing your data in real time. The connection manager, which we've already connected to. The next icon here, you'll see drill down. This is a great functionality because it's going to allow any one of you to click on any cell in any one of your spreadsheets and have that direct connection into Sage Intacct. And we'll touch on that in the next little bit. But you'll be able to go to the source batch directly in Sage from Excel. Outside of that, being able to write your data back from Excel directly into Sage, some additional functionalities, and then support. One item I always like to highlight is that we have a submit an idea form, and I highly recommend putting your ideas here. We actually have taken a lot of the functionalities in our solution today based on recommendations that we've had from customers, such as the write back functionality. Okay, so let's get started. And I really wanted to start off our presentation showing you the foundation of Velixo. So I'm going to go through a simple trial balance. Following that, we're going to touch on a sample pack report where I'm going to highlight some of the newer functionalities we've added into our suite of services. First thing we're going to look for is our chart of accounts. You can right now, if you wanted to, click on Export to Excel within Sage. You bring it into Excel, it's no longer live, so it's not really usable. You can put in the accounts one by one, another manual approach. As opposed to doing that, you can simply click on Insert Chart of Accounts. On the right-hand side, it's going to populate our connection, what we connected to Sage, of course. We'll click on Insert. Now all the work is being done behind the scenes, and just like that, you have your chart of accounts populate in real time. Once I double-click on the cell, as you'll see here, you'll notice this is one of those dynamic functions we have embedded into Excel. So as I'm going through this presentation today, you'll see some other functions we've embedded inside, but this will allow you to retrieve all of your data instantaneously. You'll also notice up top, you'll have that flexibility now to log out of your reports at any given point in time. You can log in, click on refresh, and then all of your data will update in real time. So anything that has been added, removed, or modified since the last time you click refresh will update. So this is that piece where I mentioned you build these reports once and then you're really done. Next, we're going to look for our account name. At this point, I'm going to use a function equals SI for Sage Intacct dot account name. Once we go ahead and click on that, here we go. All right, you'll see a drop down of the syntax you have to input. Every single function we host has the appropriate syntax, so you'll never be put in the dark of how you build your reports up. So again, we started off with our connection name being Sage. We'll go ahead and take our account. Let's take all of our accounts. And just like that, all of the accounts populate in real time. Lastly, I'm going to put a few additional filters here. So let's put from, let's put to, and then we're going to give ourselves a location in this scenario. I'm going to use 2019-12-01. And we're going to take the end date for 2019, 12/31. And finally, we're going to report on location 200 to get 100 to get started. At this point, when we're trying to retrieve our closing balance, you can absolutely use a function like I've highlighted in our account name. But if anyone here has that backbone in Excel, I am sure you have used the insert function icon in the past. So when you actually click on the insert function, you'll notice that there's a new category that's been created called Velixo NX. At this point, we simply type SI again for Sage Intacct, and then we scroll down to the function that we're looking for. So we have our closing balance. We'll go ahead and click on OK. And at this point, it is as simple as plugging and playing into the appropriate fields. Our start date, end date, and finally our location ID. You can report based on reporting books. You can filter based on dimensions and absolutely user-defined dimensions. When I go through a sample pack report in the next couple of minutes, it's going to highlight how you can use Velixo for these specific means. Lastly, before I do click on OK, just note where it says help on this function. And this is going to be your holy grail in terms of content for resources. So we click help on this function, and you'll notice that you're going to be redirected to our website immediately. Every single function we host, and I can't preface this enough, every single function, you're going to have the syntax, you'll have parameters, and you're going to have examples. The idea behind Velixo is we want to empower customers to be able to build reports on their own and have the resources available. In this day and age, I think we're all aware, customers, individuals, but just as people, we like to be very autonomous and we like to self-learn. So we want to create the content there so that customers have that ability to do so. But yes, you'll have the 4-point team. They have a good backbone in Velixo already and understanding Velixo, so they can absolutely help you with your reporting requirements. But as you'll see below here, the syntax, the parameters, and let me just scroll down. So you'll see here, examples. We have various examples with screenshots and the examples of how we actually retrieve those values. So whether it's dimensions, but just showing some examples as you'll see here. Let's get back to the report because I think that's the fun part for today. So let's go ahead and click on OK. And now all the work, again, it's being done behind the scenes. You'll have that status icon that you can click on, but the data has already loaded, which is great news to see. And again, this is a live feed into Sage. Go ahead and drop this down. Zoom out just a little bit, just so we can see the full value. And let me make this report look a bit nicer. All right, so we have our balance, we have the location, we have the financial period. Everything looks fantastic. At this point, let's assume perhaps we want to report on location 200 and not 100. It's as simple as modifying that location, and you'll see in a matter of seconds, maybe 2 or 3 seconds, the new balance is loaded in real time. But you might want to compare, let's just assume, 100 to 200. An idea comes into play, and at this point, I'm not getting too creative, but you can put a variance in here, and let's say we were looking for variance itself. And what you've noticed is that I'm just using a hybrid of Velixo functions in addition to standard Excel functionality. So reports that you've potentially already built, you can just Velixify these reports, add your connection in, add the functions in, so you can have these reports looking and feeling the way you want. The last item we're going to touch on before we switch on to that sample pack report that I've been emphasizing a few times is how you can group your accounts together. With Velixo, there are 3 different ways on how to group your accounts together. You can use specific accounts, you can group ranges, or you can use something called wildcards. Take a look at the first example. Let's say we wanted accounts 110 10-100, and then 10-200. It is as simple as putting a semicolon in between those values, copying any one of those three line items, pasting those appropriate fields, and you will see the addition of those three accounts populate in real time. Next example is looking at ranges. Let's say we wanted 110 all the way to 10750. Same idea comes to effect. And finally, wildcards, which allows you to mix and match the accounts you want to group together. So let's assume we want any account with a leading 1. We're going to put 4 question marks after that because we have 5 total digits. And then let's say we don't want account 10200. And again, you'll see everything update in real time. So just to provide a small recap before we switch into that sample pack report, I highlighted very simply how we connected to our ecosystem, which is very simple. You're putting in your credentials. Following that, we did a simple trial balance. We compared locations to other locations, and then we grouped our accounts together. With that being said, I'm going to switch gears, and we will switch into that sample pack report. So you'll notice here, there are various reports that you'll have at your disposal. So we have a P&L, trailing P&L, you can put actuals for the first 3 months, budget for the next 9 months. Again, you can slice and dice these reports exactly the way you wanted. Profit dashboard, and a few other reports itself as well that you'll have access to. So you'll see here a profit dashboard, count balances where you might have scenarios, and then we'll touch on the write backs momentarily. Within this report, if we open this up, you'll notice all the account classes we've used here, how we've grouped our accounts together. And this is on our website, so you can use this. It's free. We want to, again, give you a baseline of how you can build the reports out, but it's just to give you a snapshot of what is available and how you can segment these reports out. You'll notice in our scenario, we have multiple locations. So let's assume we wanted to toggle between given locations. You can do so, and you're going to see the report toggle in real time. You'll notice a pie chart I just created here, and this is just using Excel. This is no Velixo associated functions. It just gives you that flexibility to, let's say you wanted to insert pie chart. You can add all the visuals and graphics that you already use within Excel. I also did mention that there are multiple dimensions here, so you can toggle between these as well and obtain the right dimension for you. So that being said, I will touch on one of my favorite functionalities, the functionality that a lot of customers at Velixo like to use, which is called drill down. Now, put simply, if you look up top, you'll see drill down. But what does it do? Again, it allows you to click on any cell in any one of your spreadsheets and go to that source batch directly within Sage Intacct. As you can imagine, we will go through an example. So let's assume we are looking at our operating and maintenance. If we click on drill down right up top, you'll see a new sheet populate below. And this is going to indicate all of those accounts that are living within your operating and maintenance. So it's going to indicate what account it's coming from, the location, of course, the date ranges, and balances. But let's assume we wanted to get a more granular view of our professional fees expenses. Simply click on View Transaction, and then a new sheet will populate, and it will highlight every single line item within that given transactions. So we'll see here, what journal did this come from? The description, the location, department, and again, you'll see the balances on the right-hand side. But you all see how I've highlighted one example. So let's go ahead and show you how we are connected to Sage Intacct. If we wanted to see this transaction live, click on View Batch. And at that point there, we will be redirected into the Sage Intacct ecosystem. Just be mindful, you need to be logged in already for it to show this view. Otherwise, it's going to prompt you to log in with your credentials because we want to make sure people who are receiving this will have access. But it's as simple as clicking the description. We'll have that clipboard. And then from here, we'll be able to see that original invoice. So really, in a matter of seconds, you'll see this populate. Great functionality. A lot of customers like using this for reconciliation, and it gives you that foresight into every single line item that you have within your ecosystem. That being said, I want to touch on the next functionality we added in. And for those of you here who are using Sage for financials and trying to extract all your data, that's great. I know that there are going to be a lot of individuals who want to report on items that are outside of financials, whether it's inventory, commission, being able to report on anything within the data that you have within Sage. With Velixo, you'll have that flexibility to report on absolutely anything. So let's go into our ecosystem. I'm going to show you an example of how we can report on, let's take an example of AP bills, for instance. And let's assume we want to bring in all of our AP bills live into Excel. So let's take the first example. We click on View. And don't worry, we're not going to touch anything below here that you see. We're going to go up top where it says More Actions. We're going to click on Object Definition. And all we're going to do is copy that integration name that you see. And then we're going to go back into Excel. At this point, it's as simple as using another function we've created. Anything outside of financials, we're going to be using a function called si.query. So Sage Intacct.query. Click on the query, and just like before, it's going to ask us for that connection name. So we use Sage as our original connection name. We're going to paste the AP bill, click on OK, and you'll see just like that, this is a live feed of your bills and adjustments from Sage in real time. So if there's another AP bill that gets put into the ecosystem within the next second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, whatever it might be, again, you're just going to click on Refresh All, and the data itself will also be updated in real time. One other big component I do like to mention is that you have that flexibility to filter on your inquiries itself or your objects. So you'll see here si.query, where you'll see another ability to filter through this. So if you're only looking for like state paid, you only wanted vendors of Kaufman, you'll have that ability to filter through, and it just speeds up your report in itself. The last item here I did want to emphasize is that you can really customize these reports the way you want. So if you have multiple objects on different screens within Sage itself, you can combine those onto one spreadsheet. So you don't have 20 or 30 different sheets that I'm sure a lot of you already have within Excel right now. You can consolidate the amount of spreadsheets that you're looking at, but it's, again, to create that view that you're looking for that I'm sure you've all utilized in the past when you're building reports within Excel. So with that being said, I am going to touch on the last functionality at Velixo, and it is the newest functionality we've added in. This actually came in from our submitted idea, like I've mentioned, and it allows customers to push their data back from Excel directly into Sage. We have customers with the ability to push back journal transactions, budgets, and project estimates, but that's really just a start. We're actually looking at growing the number of screens or scenarios that customers can push back to. That's coming down the line itself, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware that we'll be able to push back to additional screens down the line. So let's go ahead and go through an example of being able to push our data back into Sage Intacct. You'll see this example right here, and this was the first example that we had created a couple of years ago. We had a customer who had a provision on a monthly basis. They had to push column J, so their total accrual figures, back into their ERP every single month. It was a manual process. The revenue per location multiplied by the GL rate. Once we retrieved the value, which spit it out right here, customers would have to manually go into their ERP and push that back. I will show you all how quickly it is to update the data. So let's assume our GL rate, let's just assume it is 3.6 It's not 3.2, but 3.8. When I click on tab in a moment, you'll notice that the total accrual figures will update in real time. So let's go ahead and click tab. And at this point, let's assume we are ready to push our data back into Sage. It is as simple as clicking Perform Write Back, Current Worksheet, and then just like that, you'll notice in a moment or so, a new batch number will be created, and then we will have a new screen populate. It's faster than I am, funny enough, but it's going to indicate those new entries that have been pushed back into Sage. And just so you all know, I am telling you all the truth. So we'll see here, 1,444, 1,084, 748, and so on. But you'll notice here as well, it's only as a draft from a state perspective. You'll have that timestamp, and you'll see who modified this report itself. Again, we mirror those permission rights that are set in Sage for every single user. But you'll notice here, you'll be able to post it. But if I go back to the spreadsheet itself, you'll see that you'll have that flexibility. You can post it if you'd like to. Yet at the end of the day, you can set up this report just like the other report in the manner that you want. So you can have these reports from the end user's perspective, the way they want to see it, but the way you're pushing it back, you can also push these reports back in the way you would like. One item I do want to mention, we have not unofficially released this functionality, yes, but this is going to be released in the next couple of weeks, is the ability for customers to use Velixo to send out reports. So from a demo's perspective today, I won't be able to highlight the distribution functionality, but customers, and in about a couple of weeks or so, you'll be able to send out reports to multiple individuals from Excel at the click of a button. So from Excel, where you're creating reports, at one click of a button, you'll also be able to send out these reports in real time. The last item for today that I just wanted to highlight and showcase is the amount of
Duffy, on that functionality that you're talking about, the report distribution, those reports that the end users get, they're going to be standard Excel reports, so they're not going to be containing Velixo formulas, or do they contain Velixo formulas? Like, do they need to be Velixo users?
So they don't. So individuals, they'll need access to Velixo, who's ever sending it out. But those individuals who are sending these reports out, they can send it to people who won't have access to Velixo, and they'll see a static report. So it's not going to show any formulas. It won't show anything like that. But you can already do that right now with the copy workbook without formulas right up top. But potentially, if these reports are being sent out by individuals who will receive these reports, who will potentially have access to Sage, when they log in to, or when they receive these reports, they'll be able to use these reports as a dynamic report, just like the individual who sent it to them. Answer your question, David?
Okay, so it's smart enough to know if they're Velixo or non-Velixo users.
Correct. All right, so the last item I did want to highlight for today and just emphasize is the amount of support, and I can't emphasize this enough, the amount of support that is available. Within the help.intacct.velixo website itself, you will see various reports that you can repurpose at your discretion. Of course, it's not going to be out of the box. You'll have to repurpose these, but you'll have sample reports that you can access, the ones that I showcased today. But outside of that, you're going to have videos, you're going to have how-to guides showing you how to use Velixo for some of the functionalities, such as I highlighted today, such as drill down for Velixo, and various tools and templates that you'll see on the right-hand side itself. So you'll see here every single function that we host. Because I did mention, we've embedded functions into Excel itself, so you'll be able to see every single function located here. So let's say we're looking at the financial functions. All the functions are going to come with the same content that I've already highlighted. So we'll see here examples. And outside of that, I'm not a big proponent on YouTube, but I'll just emphasize this. We have 98, as you'll see, videos here. So you'll be able to see videos on Velixo for specific use case scenarios. So you'll have access to this already. So with that being said, I'm going to leave the floor to 4Point to speak about next steps from their standpoint. But on our side, we're happy to answer any questions that y'all might have.
Thanks, Duffy. Yeah, Leslie, if there's any questions or that people might have, maybe we can open that up now before we wrap up.
Yeah, absolutely. There has been a few. We have been answering. Thank you, Puria, for answering them as we go. Did you want to read them out and their answers just for everybody to hear?
Yeah, there was a question of whether this if Velixo works with is Excel agnostic. So my understanding is that excuse me, it will work on the latest version of Excel, be it Office 365 or Excel 2021, but it also it can be Windows, Mac OS, and also just Excel Online. Is that correct, Duffy?
It's correct, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There was another question to say, will I be able to extract a certain set of accounts if I don't know the account number by heart? Just want to compare fixed assets between two periods.
Certainly.
So, Pura,
Well,
you
as
answered yes, but do you want to put some bit of context in that?
Of course, as Duffy's demonstrated, you could certainly pull a certain range of accounts based on certain criteria on the account ID, but you could also pull a range of accounts based on the account group or based on account type or any other criteria that you might have. You might need to use an object from your Sage Intacct account, but at the end of the day, it's certainly feasible.
And also the idea is that, yes, there's a bit of effort the first time you're creating those kind of queries, but then the formulas are there permanently. So it's a matter of utilizing other cells to be your filters or your parameters, so that you can just change those cell values and the system will recalculate.
Absolutely. Everything. My apology. Yeah, everything that you build in the file will have a live connection, and if you add or remove anything, update anything in your account, it will be reflected on the file with just pressing a refresh button.
There was another question saying, for auditing purposes, any data pushed into Sage logged by user and time. I think Duffy demonstrated that. That journal that was pushed back had the date timestamp, had the user who did it. There was probably one extra step, Duffy. If you go to the history tab on that journal entry screen, you'll actually see, the details of who's created the journal, and then subsequently if someone approves it or submits it. So it maintains that audit trail. Another question, can you connect to other types of databases like an SQL payroll database? So
Well, if you wouldn't mind me answering that question,
yeah, of course.
Velixo only provides a two-way connection between Sage Intacct and Excel. But with that being said, you could certainly use other tools to pull data from any other platforms into Excel. And at the end of the day, it's Excel, so you could mix and match the data that's being pulled from other platforms with what you're pulling from Sage Intacct using Velixo and build your formulas and a structure around it.
But Velixo is designed to have application-specific connectors. So it's not like a generic database connector. It's designed to say, I want to connect to Sage Intacct as a product.
That is correct. Velixo is built based on, like, the codes are based on Sage Intacct specifically, and the reason for that is that we want the product to be performing efficiently. So you'll see that, like, the performance, a huge performance difference between the Velixo connection and a generic database tool. The performance, the way that Velixo pulls data from Sage Intacct is very much optimized for the platform itself.
That makes sense. Jen, your message about the recorded sessions. Yes, this will be recorded, and Leslie will share that link through an email. But also, there looks like, as Duffy showed, a ton of stuff on YouTube. So it's probably worth like perusing through those to see a little bit more about Velixo. And then we're also happy to organize a session, an interactive session with as well. There was another question saying, how do we get notified if there's an update to the Excel add-in? So like, does it auto update? Like how does it work there?
Exactly as you mentioned, Velixo is not a, for the lack of a better word, is not a software that you install on your computer that would require updates. It's an add-in, and it becomes updated on the back end right away when we release a new version. So it has auto updates. You don't need to update it manually.
Okay. I think that's all we have on the Q&A. So if there's no other questions, I think what we'll do is we'll wrap up. As I said in my intro, look, we're really excited about this solution. Velixo became a marketplace partner late last year. It was announced at our partner event at the start of the year, and we put our hand up and signed up as a Velixo partner almost immediately. We believe from an implementation perspective, it will be fairly light touch. There will be time allocated to implementation projects that include Velixo, but also, as existing customers who want an Excel add-in that is real time, so not some offline database that gets synchronized, but real-time connectivity to Sage Intacct. You can see there's a lot of content. It's really easy to install, and there's actually a lot of content around writing formulas, and also the online help to guide you in how to get the syntax right. And then if more assistance is needed, our consultants are also skilling up in this area so we can provide guidance to our customers. And if it's a question that we don't know, I believe with every subscription, there's hours that Velixo also offer as part of that subscription for the initial implementation. Duffy, is it worth just touching on that? Like what is a client who typically signs up to Velixo then need from a assistance in terms of getting started?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that question. I'd say a good close to 70% of the customers who sign up with Velixo, they're typically off and running with our solution within the first couple of days. Once customers sign up, we send a video along with the activation email, so showing you how you sign up, but we also share resources themselves. Outside of that, in terms of implementation itself, we do have some optional training on Velixo, so you can have a session with 10 members of your team. It can be recorded, but I would say the large proportion of our customers really go off with the solution itself. You don't have to be a programmer at the end of the day to use Velixo. You just have to familiarize yourself with some of the functions themselves. I think from a support standpoint, you all might need, if you want some hand-holding, or let's say potentially you don't have the resources on your side to build the first 1 or 2 reports themselves. At that point, the 4-point team or us can help you build that first report, and then we showcase to you how we've built that itself, so that eventually you can go on your own and then create the next reports themselves down the line. But from a resource standpoint, you'll have 4 points, you'll have Velixo. We're here to assist at the end of the day.
All right. Yep. Thanks for that. Okay, so just in terms of if this is something that you're interested in, please reach out to your account manager, so John and Christy. You'll also get a follow-up email with a link to this recording. And really, we'd love to hear from you guys, even just to get feedback, or if you've got more questions, or if you want to see Velixo in a bit more detail, and also want to get some pricing information around the subscription. So, yeah, thank you, everyone. And hope you got some value out of today's session.